Good to have you back with us on Ed Schultz News and Commentary. Communication Workers of America, Alliance for American Manufacturing, BioGreen Clean, and the iSafe team bring you this production. Well, you would think that the Speaker of the House, Mr. Ryan, has got this spending bill all put together and not going to be a campaign issue, but then here comes Ted Cruz out of the Senate saying this about the omnibus spending bill.
You know, typically in the Senate, you have two votes. You can vote either yes or no. On this particular matter, my vote, I intend to be hell no. This is what's wrong with the Washington cartel. And Republican leadership has proven to be the most effective Democratic leaders we've ever seen. Mm-hmm. This omnibus does not honor the promises we made to the men and women who elected us. It funds Obamacare. It funds Planned Parenthood. It funds executive amnesty. It fails to stop Syrian refugees from coming to this country to protect our national security. It doesn't do that. It fails to do anything to stop the Iranian nuclear deal.
So fiscal conservatives are going to gravitate to Ted Cruz, and Cruz is using this omnibus spending bill to launch himself away from Donald Trump and also Marco Rubio. Rubio also says he's against it. But funding Obamacare, the majority of American people want to see that happen. The majority of American people do not want to get rid of Planned Parenthood. So there's a lot of unpopular stuff that senator just said. Let's go to Sherrod Brown of Ohio. Senator, good to have you with us.
Yeah, good to be back. Thanks, buddy.
Your thoughts on, you bet, great to have you with us. Your thoughts on this spending bill, and is it going to get through the Senate?
It's going to get through the Senate. I mean, with Ted Cruz, probably Ted Cruz's words will help it get through the Senate, frankly, even in his own party. Most of my colleagues are going to vote for this. It's, you know, I wouldn't write these bills this way. I wouldn't wait to the last minute, but I also know that we've finally broken out of that sequestration where we're just squeezing and squeezing and squeezing. It's affected our economic growth. We've not seen the kind of public works, the kind of infrastructure, the kind of medical research, the kind of investment in community colleges and highways and bridges and water and sewer, all the things that help our economy grow, that made us the most incredible economy in the world from the 40s into the 80s. Then you know, we've seen so that's all good news. So it's clearly much better than it would have been without it. We're putting more money into Head Start. We're putting more money into transportation, education, health care. As you said, we're funding Planned Parenthood. We're doing a lot of those things that we should have done years ago.
Is Cruz using this bill as an opportunity, as you see it, to break away and make sure he gets the fiscal conservatives on his side?
Yeah, I mean, Cruz does. I don't want to really get all that much into this presidential race, but Cruz always does what helps him politically. I mean, so does Rubio. I mean, Rubio and Cruz are, in that sense, they're two peas in a pod. Their positions they take and the way they talk are always about politics. And you know, Rubio started off maybe not that way, but his ambition has overwhelmed him. And you know, there's a saying of Vermont senator many years ago, Republican from Vermont, back 50 years ago, was talking about all the presidential ambition in the U.S. Senate. He said the only cure for the presidential virus in the U.S. Senate is embalming fluid. And these two guys got the ambition a lot sooner, and the compromises already started coming, and the politicization of everything for these two guys. And so I'm not surprised Cruz would talk this way. Anything to raise money, anything to help his presidential race.
Senator, what's going to happen with Syrian refugees? Is that going to go through? Will there be changes that will satisfy those who are concerned about it? How do you see it?
Well, the concern is real in the sense that we don't want anybody in this country that has been trained by ISIS or trained in Syria or Iran to commit terror. But the best way to do that is to change the visa waiver program, so a French citizen who right now with a French passport, you can come easily into the U.S. With a U.S. passport, you can go easily into France. We need to change that, and we're going to, that if you've had if you as a French citizen with that passport had been to Syria or Iran or Iraq in the last 5 years, you don't get in. And that's the difference. What we do, what they want to do is just stop all refugees. The refugees are not the issue. The refugees that are coming here, the way that we screen refugees takes 1.5 to 2 years. They're not coming in. The terrorists aren't coming in this way. They're trying to come other ways, and that's how we stop them that way. One more point. Since September 11th, 750,000 refugees have come into this country. Only 3 out of 750,000, 3 have been even arrested. Not one has been convicted of any terrorist activity. So we have done that, by and large, right. That screening process that takes 18 months to 2 years. It's the visa waiver program we need to fix, and we need to make sure that the authorities, the customs people, are putting more effort into going online and seeing if these people are wanting to come in are using social media. That's where we've fallen short as a nation, and that's what we need to fix.
Do you think that we need to go into social media like we have not been doing? There was a report out there that the Obama administration didn't want to do it because they thought it would look bad. It was also election year politics at the time, and they were afraid of that coming out. At least that was the report by Brian Ross on ABC. I mean, how far do we go, in your opinion?
Well, I voted against the Patriot Act 20 years ago or 15 years ago, so you can see where I start on this. But yeah. I do think people that are coming into this country that depending on where they're coming from, we do look at social media, but we don't keep them out unless we have real evidence to show that they can be a problem. So it's not a question of too much intervention in people's lives. It's a question of protecting our country, and we can do that without all this anti-Muslim rhetoric and without beating up on refugees that just they want to get away from terrorism every bit as much or more than we do.
Senator, where do you stand on this drumbeat that's going on over on the conservative debates about troops on the ground to fight ISIS? Does the president have a strategy? And do you agree with the way he is handling all of this? Because if you listen to the opposition, they can't wait to get boots on the ground. That's the only way we're going to defeat ISIS. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, these opposition that wants boots on the ground, first of all, they're not making any effort in Congress to actually do something about authorization with the president and all that. So
authorization of force of military use of military
exactly.
force.
Yeah, it's rhetoric. It's playing to the crowd, and everybody on that stage, almost everybody, was playing to fear, as they always do ever since Joe McCarthy, and race and all the things that they play to over and over and over again. It was one after the other, trying to many stretching the truth or worse, and playing to fear. But I think you start with this, Ed, that the people in this town in Washington that are most strongly advocating boots on the ground are the same people that got us into the war in Iraq. And I think there's no question that the instability in the Middle East, much of it flows from the war in Iraq, much of the creation of ISIS, much of all of this. And you start with that with this crowd, and then you start figuring this out. But the president, we don't want a long war in the Middle East. That number one, the American people don't want it. Number two, it won't work. And so it means working with local communities and local countries there. It means, in part, putting real effort into drying up the money for ISIS and using the powers of the International Banking Committee to sanction anybody doing business that's sending money directly or indirectly to ISIS. That's something we do very, very well. Yet at the same time, the Banking Committee chairman won't even confirm the Assistant Treasury Secretary for terrorism and financial crimes, a guy that's been out there for 8 months, a former Bush guy who Obama appointed, and wants to get him in the Middle East, doing everything he can to close any pipelines to squeeze financing of terrorism. And that's a big part of what we can do that Obama's doing, and he's trying, but this guy's not empowered as much as he would if the Senate would confirm him instead of just talking.
So on one hand, there's a lot of criticism of the president. On the other hand, they're not going to help him do anything when it comes to
what's the story? Yeah, how many interviews have we had with that subject in the last 7 years? It's always criticism of Obama, but not giving it. It's that on the economy. I mean, they did nothing to help us grow this economy. Nothing, in fact, did damage to helping us grow. And then they scream at the president, "Look how bad economic growth is." Well, no kidding.